here likely the favorites against SKT in the final.
All right, we're jumping straight into the pick and ban phase here of game 1. Jace, Rakan, Sejuani already banned by Samsung.
Yeah, Huni has had target Jace bans all throughout this tournament. He's actually played Jace more than any of the other top laners and has been a huge part of SK Telecom's early side pressure that they've been getting.
I think Samsung were ready for a potential first pick Galio, and that's why they banned the Sejuani on blue side. SKT, of course, removing Kalista as well.
Yeah, Janna here is the obvious one that has not gone through, though, and Samsung will be very happy to pick this one up. Janna has been a champion that every single team in this meta has been so happy to build a composition around.
Now, we, Kobe, were talking a lot about Varus as a key pick here because Samsung has focused so much on having that strong bot lane.
Yeah, we watched the VODs of their match versus Team WE, and it was all about Ruler getting this pick so early on that they were able to have bottom lane control and then bring in the other parts, the top lane of the Shen pick or the mid lane from the Galio to play around that bottom lane and get snowballing.
And Quickshot talked to Koma before the games. We saw it in the pre-show. Koma said they need to find a way to stop Samsung's bot lane from winning early on. That is why they picked the Varus so early here for Bang, to try and make sure he's not losing the bottom lane. But I like the Xayah pick here from Samsung and the Malzahar.
Early priority on Malzahar. You'd expect Jarvan based in the tier list to match up the jungle against Peanut here. They're not going for it.
Yeah, exactly. Samsung are not a big Jarvan team. Ambition is not a big fan of it. They don't really play top lane either at the moment. So they let it go, and normally they like Kha'Zix or Lee Sin instead of the Jarvan.
And it's very interesting that they're willing to early pick this Malzahar for a Crown, because Crown has been a huge discussion point for Samsung Galaxy this year. Whereas you remember back to last year in the finals, Crown was one of the best players on the team and a huge part of trying to take down Faker. He even got the solo kill on Faker in game number 1. But Malzahar is this champion. You're not looking for solo kills. You're looking even at a CS deficit early on and being more useful later.
And you bring engage for your team, which is really good against split pushers like Huni. If you can always force a fight in the mid to late game, Huni has to TP in and join, and his split pushing days are over. SKT, though, they actually removed the Jarvan here, so Ambition can still go for either Kha'Zix or Lee Sin as one of his preferred choices in the jungle. I like the Syndra ban.
Again, if we're seeing a lot of top lane bans as well, Gnar really comes to the forefront of my mind. Because they've already banned out the Jace, this is a very possible blind pick. Everybody willing to play this champion into any other matchups besides the Jace, and with the Shen also being banned out, it does look like that will be a split push advantage.
We're probably going to get the Kennen here coming in from CuVee. That is normally the answer to Gnar up in the top lane.
His answer. Almost no one else plays it,
well,
but
his answer
it's what he does. AP Kennen.
He's the meta now.
And
he is.
There's a reason for that, because to me it is a very risky answer. Yes, AP Kennen can have some team fight interactions here, but especially just 1v1 with the Gnar, jungler advantage means a huge amount in that matchup, and these top laners have not gotten a lot of jungler intervention.
All right, here we are in the ends of champs. Like you can see where all the champions have gone. Cassiopeia in the mid lane for Faker. Wolf on his 8th Lulu game of the tournament. He's played 9 unique champions and almost half an hour on Lulu here. He is on comfort.
Cassiopeia as well coming in last here from Faker. He saw the blind Malzahar and said, you know what? I can destroy that guy in the laning phase. We've not seen a lot of Cassiopeia in the knockout stage, but it is still such a powerful laner if you are good with the champion.
Yeah, and we do have Peanut on the Gragas as well. So much about early game in the current meta has these two roles linked. We've said so many times throughout this tournament is a lot about mid and jungle in the early game, and then you can start to transition that through to Vision, which does get that bottom lane control we always come back to.
Exactly, and the plan here makes a lot of sense from SKT's side, as we have a little bit of confusion of how far away do you walk for the handshake when the coach is all the way on the other side of the stage.
Well, it's a long track here. They're going to learn, and you heard Dash talk about the 100-meter dash earlier with this one. Maybe they can run a quarter mile back and forth to their teams and the coaches.
I think they're just worried the dragon was going to come back. That is a healthy amount of respect given.
Still though, spawn till 35 minutes. They're okay for now.
They're okay for now. I look at this SKT drafter and I'm like, okay, they identify, get a winning mid lane matchup for Faker, get a bot lane matchup that can go even at least against Samsung, and they got that in this draft here. Lulu Varus is so strong in the 2v2 lane, and the Cassiopeia can win early.
And we'll have to continue to check in on the top lane 1 versus 1. Huni into CuVee's Kennen.
Game 1 of the 2017 League of Legends World Championship Final about to begin. We are on the Summoner's Rift, and it is going to be a barn burner of a match. SK Telecom T1, three-time world champions, looking for number 4. Samsung Galaxy were a game away from dethroning them this time last year, and now in front of an even larger crowd in Beijing, China, hoping to be the second Samsung team to win Worlds.
In order to do that, they are definitely going to have to deal with this mid lane. Faker on Cassiopeia is one of the player and champion combinations that have been the most brutal for the opposing mid laner. Crown now is going to have a lot of defensive work to do. Cassiopeia can take off the shield very easily with the spammability of her spells and then continue to punish him because Malzahar, very few options for trading early on.
That's also where I get a little bit scared when I see Ambition on Zac, because Zac's early game is not very good either. It's not a strong 2v2 fight around the mid lane from Samsung until later in the game. They definitely need a Malzahar ulti and probably even more to actually beat the Cassiopeia and Gragas. So SKT will get that control they're looking for.
Of note, you're seeing the bot laners very focused on keeping the marksman alive, barrier heal on both of these squads right here. One of the fun innovations, I guess we can say, about Worlds so far this year. Our defense has been popular. Bot lane's been a very important lane, and keying very heavily on keeping those marksmen alive in the team fights. Ruler and Bang have been two of the world's best for quite a long time. We'll see how much they can put in this game.
And with Peanut getting the leash on top side, starting red and heading downward, Bang and Wolf get the early control of this bottom side. You can see the first thing that Wolf goes for is the brush control on the side lane to try and threaten Ruler there. And he did miss the last hits, so the early gold advantage over to the Varus lane here with Lulu on the brush control.
Everything counts in the early game.
20 gold.
You can, but more importantly for SKT, they're trying to get that early push in their favor after Samsung comes a little bit later to the lane here. Meanwhile, though, look at mid lane. Faker's already pushing Crown to his own turret, level 1.
And we talk about this matchup a little bit more in depth. Whenever we speak with any of the mid laners, the biggest frustrations with Malzahar and why we don't see him pick more frequently is the difficulty with CSing early. So the theory here for Faker, behind just shoving the wave into the turret, is that Malzahar already isn't able to get those last hits, and it makes it even more difficult as the turret shots are coming through. But that being said, Crown actually doing okay getting those last hits.
And then we have to add on that Malzahar's damage in the early game before his ulti is ready is not very high. It's easy for Cassiopeia to kill the small voidlings and then simply out-trade Crown.
And we're seeing that jungle and mid lane link on display here already as Peanut goes for a bottom lane invade, drops his ward at the Raptor pit, and then gets vision with Q first. So he's checking all of the boxes, being safe and looking both ways before he crosses the Krug camp.
Gets to cook it. He doesn't waste the W active on the Blast Cone. That's a coded interaction with the ability. So everything's ready. He's going to be just fine taking away Krugs. That's easy to do. Ambition on his first recall should have enough for the Poacher's Knife. And now we're going to see CoreJJ sees him and pushes them back over the wall.
All right, Peanut will be safe for now. Now, a big thing about Samsung in the knockout stage of Worlds was they tried to play more for the early and mid game. They stopped playing just for late game team fights, and it was so focused around strong bot lanes. Because then Ambition will play bottom side. See what happens mid first, though, because Peanut is on his way.
Damage out of the silence. Crown's going to have his teammate coming in soon enough. But look at Faker taking plenty of damage. It's just the easy outplay 1v1. Crown gets out and he sees Peanuts nearby.
You have to be very careful chasing into Malzahar when those voidlings are up, especially since there's not vision to know that Zac is not going to be there for a counter gank. So that's why Faker pulls off on the aggression and does not continue the chase.
Even if Faker does pull back on the aggression, bot lane's been looking good for SKT. A farm lead for them. Now the engage on the silence, but just in time, bot SM comes up. Summoner heal out of Faker also to build some distance. But first, Summoner spell lost by SKT.
Some good little plays around the mid lane from Crown and Ambition, of course, joining him here. They need to do this. They need to make sure Crown does not fall too far behind. When he played the quarterfinal against Longshore and he blind picked the Malzahar, Syndra was the answer from BDD, and Crown died early on in lane. He got destroyed. Same thing cannot happen here. Yes, you can fall down in CS as long as you're staying alive and you're farming.
I want to talk about the bot lane, though. We talked about it a second ago. Bang and Wolf heavily ahead right now in the 2-on-2. Priority on Varus, the takeaway. And happy to play Lulu into Janna, a better laner but a worse team fighter. So far, that laning phase is going well.
And this again, the counter to the Samsung knockout strategy that we see here from SKT. Get a stronger 2v2 lane. Do not allow Ruler to control bottom side. Do not allow CoreJJ to roam early. And suddenly, Samsung don't actually have a lane on the bottom side they can play around. It's on top side where Kennen is winning.
That's why we put so much emphasis on this Varus pick for Ruler in Champion Select, and SK Telecom very clearly taking that one away. Here's some stats on your screen to just emphasize your point, Deficio, as far as the way that Samsung like to play it.
Yeah, this is against other teams in the top 8, against the South Korean champions in Longzhu, the 3-0 there with 3 Tristana games, a bunch of Varus ones against Mystic and Co from Team WE. This had been a formula for success in Samsung's run.
And one of the reasons for the success of the formula is the amount of rewards you can get out of that bottom lane turret if that is the first one to go. You know, with Ardent Sensor being so heavily important in this meta, you get to rotate your support and AD carry with the extra pushing power, and you kind of chain the objectives.
See top lane right now. Peanut is on the way here. CuVee has been pushing this lane non-stop. Peanut is spotted though, and Kennen is level 6, so you really got to respect the potential counter gank from a Zach in there against a level 6 Kennen.
So far, so good with the wards. So you can see Ambition gonna spot his opponent as well. The ward's not gonna be knocked down, even though it was revealed by the Scryer's Bloom. And Ambition's been able to hold up pretty nicely in the mid lane, in the jungle, I should say, since he walks through the mid lane, holding a decent farm lead and getting a pretty solid recall off as well. But not any wards yet for Ambition. He didn't go for the Tracker's Knife that Peanut had.
Always a lot of value on control wards from Samsung's side, and there's no vision on bottom lane here. We have actually Ambition moving down. He's
In fog.
for that first gank.
And that's the flash to the bang, but now the chase on the Wolf lanes the Q. The auto's going to pull him in a bit more, but there's no follow-through on that one either way. They get another flash out, and that is the second Ambition gank to force a summoner out of SKT.
Yeah, we'll see if the flash being down here on Bang does relieve some of the pressure, allow Ruler to catch up on the CS here.
Oh, that's not a Void Link. Oh! There's the back around, gets plenty of damage with the Void Links. Faker going to force to be run away. 100 HP left on him, flashes. I think he might have been expecting E to come back from cooldown. It just did now. And as Faker now out of summoners in the mid lane.
Yeah, there were so many small voidings just hitting him right there, sending up a great ulti from Crown. And again, this is so important for Samsung. The Crown is not losing lane.
You have to watch the cascading effect of the aggression here. There are 2 summoner spells down on SK Telecom, the 2 most important ones of the flashes for their carries. In addition, actually, Faker's heal still not back up from the earlier visit, so Samsung do have this opening, and they will be looking to punish these carries.
We have to remember here, Malzahar only gets better the longer we get into the game. Now the ulti is available from his side after level 6, and suddenly he's quite a threat when he's roaming around, and his damage gets much, much better in the late game.
You talk about threats roaming around. I want to key into Wolf really quickly. Part of the bot lane lead is not just the CS that Bang has got, but because of the push lead, CoreJJ has not been able to grab all the coins. Actually, Wolf has earned several hundred more gold so far because of lane dominance.
Yeah, people talk about how broken the coin is and how effective the item is. A lot of it does hinge on actually picking up the gold that's sitting on the ground. Very good point to bring up there, Freak. And it does have huge ramifications for the early towers that we keep coming back to. Building that Ardent Sensor and being the first one to complete it greatly accelerates that confrontation.
We talked about how SKT tried to counter the Samsung strategy of having a strong bot lane with this Lulu Varus. Well, on the top side, CuVee right now with the counter pick is doing extremely well, and look at that. He's actually not rushing towards AP Kennen. He's building AD with fervor of battle. He's trying to become a pure split pusher to keep Huni down.
Yeah, this has been something that's incredibly important and hotly debated here for these 2 top laners, because they have been the 2 most successful, but very different. As I said on the analyst desk, CuVee has had the tendency to join the team for team play so much more often than Huni throughout this tournament. But now, as you said, without going the AP build here for Kennen, he would want to keep that pressure in the side lane.
Exactly. AP Kennen is much stronger when he joins team fights compared to AD Kennen, who's a pure, like, stay in your side lane and win it. And Huni had the chance to counterpick tough. They could have locked in Cassiopeia earlier. They already knew it was Malzahar mid lane, but they wanted the Gnar so badly. Maybe because Huni didn't feel like he had a good answer to it in case CuVee picked it.
Well, maybe because of the tendencies of these players, they have been able to pull off a little bit of a bait here. There's nothing saying that Huni has to continue with the other way. Gnar very clearly could still join the rest of the team, and SK Telecom can pull off a very big combo with the Cassiopeia, Gragas, and Gnar.
It just forces SKT to play differently, because Huni has been playing for himself, for his lane, all tournament long. It forces him now to play with the team instead. Use your TP on the bottom side. join the big team fights. And we know he can do it on the Gnar. We've seen it before from him. It's just a different style we see in this first game from both teams.
And it's fun to see. I actually respect the hell out of what Samsung did right here, which is to still play things in CuVee's wheelhouse and a style they're pretty comfortable with, but force Huni into a play style that he hasn't shown nearly as much strength with. He's always on the Jace and the split pushers, and if he does that, he will lose the game for the team. I like what CuVee and Samsung Galaxy have done here with this.
And we have to see if the confidence Huni got from the Game 5 against RNG, where he was on the Gnar, where he made the big engage after the Drake went down and SKT won that game. He needs to do the same in this first game here against Samsung.
Let's talk a little bit more about Huni because there's an immense amount of pressure on his shoulders. SK Telecom replace a couple of players every single year. Often the top lane and the jungle, have these rotations, and there's so much, history that he has to fill in. The shoes are very big here for Huni, and we've seen how much pressure and how much focus has been given to him here. Now, on the biggest stage that he has ever played in, will he be able to step up for the organization?
Also really feels like top lane has been the most criticized role on SKT since Marin left the team. It was hard for Duke to have the impact he wanted. We saw Untaro play during the year as well. Huni didn't play all the games on the side of SKT in 2017, and it's been hard for him to kind of lock down which kind of style do they want to play from top side. Now it is a split pushing focus, except for this game, Huni needs to join the team.
Look at the stun as the marks are timed out there, but CuVee nearly got himself a couple hundred extra damage on the Huni, but still you can see this laning phase almost cresting plus 30 now, 12 minutes in. It is getting larger and larger throughout the game. It's beating CuVee's statistical average when he's against a player like Huni, and CuVee was already the #1 laner at Worlds so far in the top lane. He is doing immensely well here, but it's only keeping the game roughly equal. You can see still plus 15 in the bot lane for SKT. Faker up 10 as well.
But it's a great start on Samsung's side with the Mountain Drake, with winning top, and with the fact again that Crown is doing great in the mid lane. He's not getting punished at all for this blind big Malzahar, and Faker's trying now.
Doesn't get stunned though, and the silence means there's no more chase to be had as Faker just, takes down some Voidlings, but you can see he's kind of losing these trades. This is the pick that Faker wanted. Crown blinded it early on. They gave him 2 bans in the second phase to narrow down the pool a little bit. The Faker, though, with the Cassiopeia next up, is not really doing maybe what you expect with the matchup, and here's Samsung Galaxy starting to get what they expect out of their bot lane. A lot of pressure down here.
Again, we return to that 6 out of 7 of the first turrets for Samsung have been in the bottom lane. Ruler and CoreJJ slowly whittling away at this objective.
Yeah, if you look at the items, it's the Warhammer and the BF sword from Ruler here, just stacking as much AD as possible against attack speed, and then Ninja Tappy on the side of Bank. So Bank is not really dealing much damage in return, and Ruler's just been able to take over the lane after the first few backs.
So a 13-minute first turret for Samsung Galaxy. All I saw Ambition do was a single gank that blew Bang's flash, and the rest of it was heads up 2-on-2 with an arguably weaker laning phase. SKT got counter pick and priority, and the rolls down here. So far, step 1, good for Samsung Galaxy.
So much so that Ambition even gets to move in and take away the blue buff here as SK Telecom are just bleeding control of the map. What this then allows Samsung to do is rotate their bottom lane over to the mid lane and actually have the ability to push in Faker himself.
Yeah, Faker is trying to actually be more proactive in his lane, so QSS comes in early to use it against Crown's ulti and try and see if he can actually win the 1v1, but the 1v1 are kind of gone now because the first tower's already dead. The map is wide open. Everyone is going to start roaming around, and Faker probably won't get an easy chance to just duel Crown.
And it's double TP versus single TP, so Crown down on the bot side, of course, with that free time. You can see a blue buff stolen back by SKT is a good consolation for them. They get that same blue that Ambition had stolen earlier, and it's crucially on Faker himself. Now you've got to watch for what the lane assignments are. Samsung Galaxy putting their dual lane in the mid. The question is who can actually answer, because Crown's about to reach bot lane tier 2, and no one's getting that farm yet.
You can tell the tension rising in this game. Now the ultimate's blown for both AD carries there, but the opening of the final series here at Worlds, and both teams trying to stick to the game plan, but SKT...
They're slow on the play. They're missing half a minion wave right here. Bang just now coming in, and he can't duel a Malzahar. The Rage Blade's not dead. He's got a Blasting Wand in inventory and a Ninja Tabby. Wolf finally shows, but that is a minion wave late, and the work is starting to happen now. Samsung Galaxy playing 1-3-1 and being faster to play than SKT.
Exactly. This is a very rough spot to be in for SKT here. They're losing the map. They're losing control around mid. Rift Hell is getting started by Samsung already.
And it's the Rift Tail going to be grabbed up as well. A trade of blue buffs is fine, but they got first turret, Mountain Drake, and now Rift Tail with what's supposed to be the weaker early game jungler in Zac. He got banned out of the primary pool, his first Zac of Worlds, and Samsung Galaxy win in the early game.
And Vision had more pressure in the early game than Peanut, with the Gragas that was taken early on in the draft to also deny that from Ambition himself. And that's mid tower down now. Bot tower already died earlier. This is becoming quite a large gold lead.
Now what you want to do as soon as you get these outer turrets down for Samsung is start to clear out SK Telecom's wards, because Zac benefits so heavily from the Fog of War being able to get these big engages, and you can then follow that crowd control up with the Malzahar that we keep highlighting, who has now gotten the level 2 in his ultimate. So that is a very powerful initiation tool that Samsung would like to utilize at this stage in the game, but they have to clear out the vision of SK Telecom first.
And I like that you talk about Vision so much, because between these two teams, there's a very large difference in how many control wards they actually place on the map. Samsung are amazing at getting full control and deny vision from the enemy team. And SKT, on the other hand,
they are the most extreme numbers that we research at this entire tournament. Samsung Galaxy first place in control wards placed during the knockout stage there, and SK Telecom almost 20 less per game in last.
Yeah, so SKT have relied more on having a lot of engage in their comps. And when they then see you, even out of position or slightly out of position, they are so decisive. They engage instantly. In this game here, they have the Gragas and they have the Varus to start fights. But Ruler's ulti is there to try and prevent it, and CoreJJ's disengage.
It really is beautiful to watch Samsung's controlled style of play here. Yeah. Checkbox number 1 that we mentioned, bottom lane turret. That's off the list. Then they're able to utilize all these control wards to secure the vision and go for that engage that you're talking about, Freak.
And look at this. You just see darkness on the map in so many places. Baron is not up yet, but I expect that River Fog of War to just persist for the next 3 minutes until it does spawn. Double Mountain Drake means easy to rush that one down as well. And they've got a Blade of the Ruin King top laner. CuVee joins. They've actually got a Baron Rush on their hounds. Malzahar's pretty good at it as well. This could be a lot of great things. Samsung Galaxy are so well poised as they transition into the mid and late game.
And SKT can't walk into the river because suddenly they just get Malzahar ulted and they die almost instantly. Only really Faker at this point could actually face check with his QSS, but you never want to send in your mid laner first. And the fact that SKT are now sitting with this draft here, who needed to do well in mid lane in the early game, it makes it so hard to start the next fight.
I think that we should actually toggle SK Telecom's point of view at this point with the Fog of War, just to really illustrate how Samsung get this stranglehold. And SK Telecom, even though they're known for making so many big comebacks, look how difficult that would be to mount at this point.
It's like they don't even have wards on the map at all, and they have 2 sites on the team, one from Lulu, one from Gragas. All 5 can buy control wards. Bang just picks up one now, but it has been darkness for so long on Samsung.
Yeah, and every time Samsung goes back to base, I want everyone to look at the inventory. And you just see so many control wards, except for CuVee, but he's going back to base now.
Exactly, that's the point. I was bringing it up. He's recalling. Jorm's Fist and a control ward!
There we go, 5 control wards once again from Samsung, and it makes it so difficult to play against them if you can't force team fights. SKT at the moment are normally very good at catching some waves in the side lanes, slow push them out, and then go back to group as 4 to 5 members and look for the big team fight. But at the moment, they're just so far behind.
Big team fight might be what it comes down to. SKT have had a lot of games like this throughout Worlds, especially the group stage where they had gone 5-1, but they had to make these 10,000 gold comebacks with miracle team fights. Now shut out of the game with all 3 outer turrets gone and down everything else as well. They might need just that.
And we need to look at it from SKT's point of view, because that is the more difficult scenario here. When you're lacking vision like that, you have to use numbers advantage to make your play on the map. We just saw them push heavily with 4 members on the bottom side there towards the red quadrant to take away that red buff and try and get a single turret, their first turret of this whole game, for themselves to get some sort of gold back in their pockets, but it's at a cost.
Well, they will lose the top lane tower, as you mentioned here, but it is still fine to trade turrets when you're behind. You just need to get gold on your team, and the fact that Peanut was around bottom side, it meant that CuVee couldn't step in and defend against Faker. He had to just back away.
At a very small point, there was no local gold picked up for top lane 2. We saw Ambition only get 125, so it's almost like you traded a turret for half a turret. The map control obviously is still great for Samsung Galaxy. They can now heavily push in top lane, and this makes it even easier to play for Baron because there's one less bastion of strength near that all-important objective that SKT can use.
It's still SK Telecom And SK Telecom's legend, though, they always talk about how no matter how much gold they're down, no matter how much of the map they've lost control of, they never quite feel like they're actually going to lose the game, and they're always looking for the next play here. First one on the list is to try and get some sort of control so that they don't get baited around this Baron area.
And here they start marching out a bit 4 versus 4 right here, but Xayah is now recalled and the Kennen's in the bot lane, so momentarily there is a numbers lead for SKT. 4 strong, they run across a barrel to face check some brushes, a few control wards going down, but even though they've gotten some temporary vision into small parts in 30 seconds, they're probably all dead again as Samsung Galaxy sweeps out.
Yeah, and SKT are spending their time on getting this vision. Obviously, Samsung can then move in and deny it once again because Samsung are the stronger team at the moment. They don't have to fear SKT. They can let SKT place the vision, let them go back to their lanes, and then it's Samsung's turn to go into that jungle. And they can freely get rid of it, and then Crown with this Malzahar is a constant threat if someone is trying to face check.
One of the biggest differences I see in Samsung Galaxy this year compared to last year is the confidence this team has in themselves now. Solo pings here going down, but they're just able to very calmly retain control of this map and increase their gold lead here, even versus SK Telecom, you know, the champions, where most teams begin to panic and begin to feel rushed.
It is important, though, to highlight that Faker are getting a lot of farm at the moment. He's been in these side lanes. He's happily saying, you know what, I sacrificed one side of the map to go and actually pick up the CS I need to get my items. So he's still sitting on now 2 fully completed items and QSS plus tier. He's actually very strong in case a fight happens.
And his tier is basically fully stacked. It's at 720 mana right now, so as soon as he gets that Archangel Staff and turns into full Seraph's Embrace, he will have an incredible amount of damage up, but if he can get to that point, but it's still just that waiting game for SKT.
And the timings are working against him right now. Huni has just gone exhausted on Gnar. That means that when you transform from Mega back to Mini, there's a delay before you can build Rage back up and have the threat of the initiation. While during that time, CuVee gets a full 30 seconds on the minion wave on the bottom side here and will press it up to the turret.
This is what we talked about earlier, how Huni needs to actually abandon the side lane and go join his team. Play with the 5-man group to see if they can get a team fight, and he's just catching waves in the side lane. Most other games that he played during this tournament, it was Huni who's pushing for turrets. It's Huni who's applying pressure when SKT are losing the rest of the map. Not in this game due to this AD Kennen counter pick from Samsung.
Nice little smite by Peanut, gets a little bit of gold for himself. 62 for the Giant moment. Here comes the play. They know smite was used. Peanut, though, had a second charge available. It'll be up soon enough as they get the first and only blue trinket out of Bang.
Remember that this is a Samsung Galaxy backed by 2 Mountain Drakes, and a 3rd one is on the way. Yeah. They don't have to rush at that Baron right there. They're just poking around for the cooldowns. Now that the vision is in air, let's see.
I really love the play when you start it, you bait out the blue trinket, you kill it, you go back to your mid lane, push it, and then you go back again.
Going for the play. Can he get himself in? He's suppressed. The burst damage. Oh, the play was too early. Peanut with the game, saving Baron steal. And here comes the re-engage. He bounces back. First blood still goes to Samsung Galaxy. Huni TP's in, but it's 5v4. Huni doesn't have a lot of places to go. Faker likely to lose his life. The flank from AD Kennen. They've got 2, now make it 3 as Bang is forced to run away. He's chased down. He's silenced and dead. Huni can try to Baron recall out. They can't see him. But 4 for 0 to Samsung Galaxy.
SK Telecom got the Baron steal, but they forgot about CuVee. As soon as he joins the fight and flinks around the backside, there's only one survivor, and it's Huni himself, left alone to defend.
The call, though, was good from Samsung. Go back to the Baron. When Peanut tries to steal it, you ult him with the Malzahar. But everyone seemed to stop damage on Baron itself.
Yeah. They jumped on Peanut instead of saying he's suppressed. He literally cannot do anything.
Let's see it again here. When Peanut gets into the pit, Crown wants to ult him instantly. It's actually smart by Peanut to try and ult Crown away, but now Ruler is hitting the Gragas instead of the Baron. You don't need to kill Gragas, you can kill Baron.
But Ambition is the one who uses his smite early in the end there, even though the call for the whole team was to stop damage on Baron, so
it's a bad call.
Ambition really has a bit of explaining to do.
Seems like it's a split call. Do you kill the Gragas and then the Baron, or do you suppress the Gragas and kill the Baron?
And it's in moments like those where you see poise and experience really come out. That being said, 4 kills here were cleaned up on the outside from Samsung Galaxy.
It was 4 kills, but the only objective taken was that third Mountain Drake. There's now a long 6-minute lull for neutral objectives, and with that Baron buff on Huni, he has a bit of pressure on the side lane. Samsung Galaxy resets on their 4,000 gold lead. We'll see what they can do next.
All right, CuVee right now needs to be careful because we have Wolf and Peanut knock their way down to the bottom lane here, but all of Samsung coming from mid now.
The question is, what can they play for? A delayed game probably benefits SKT, letting Fakers scale up, and the only thing, again, they can push is turrets. So Samsung Galaxy need to move forward.
All that SKT want right now is Huni to get a turret and some gold with the Baron buff. He's trying on top side, but they're actually expending the teleport here from CuVee. And again, this is still the AD Kennen, and it's extremely threatening here in the side lane.
Well, maybe some concern about being outscaled. Of course, you can't necessarily count out Janna, Xayah, but a concern you can think about SKT, incredible late game team fighters in their own right. They'll push forward in this game.
That's where we've seen SKT come back so often in this tournament. They're down, 2-1 in series, and suddenly the 4th game, it's one big late game team fight, and they swing it all around, and then they win that game 5 as well. But in this game here, getting the Baron delayed Samsung, it doesn't mean SKT are suddenly winning, because they're still down in gold, 3 Mountain Drakes, and this draft from Samsung in late game fights is still scary.
Yep, don't get ahead of yourself. This is a multi-step process. SKT have completed step number 1, though. See if they actually are able to get any further in that process, because Samsung right now stabilizing, during that Baron buff and still trying to keep that lockdown on vision that we mentioned to open up the opportunity for Zach.
Going for Faker now. He does sense it and gets away in time, but the attempt at a dive was there. Now he's in safety in Fog of War, and never mind, no fight.
Important little ward placed around that blue buff from SKT to see the move from mid to the bottom lane here, but also gotta look at SKT's items. There's still only QSS on the side of Faker. So Crown, once this flash is ready again, can flash ulti onto almost any member on SKT and they can burn that guy down.
Well, it seems like we're going to be in a lull in the action, though. Samsung Galaxy not really a team to dive. They're the ones that play around vision control and taking over the jungle. They do get a little bit of pressure in the mid lane, so they are getting these chips in. Of course, that triple Mountain Drake means those chips are giant chunks out of the turret every auto attack. But it seems like they're still going to play very patient, and we have some time to go for the next fight.
And one of the reasons for SK Telecom's confidence here, even though they have a lot of champions that require skill to pull off in these team fights, they do have an extremely powerful late game, as you mentioned before, and very well could, again, be mounting one of those huge comebacks.
And they have that experience we always talk about with SKT, and the team saying, you know what, the game is never lost. There's always a way back. Wait for one mistake, and you can punish that. We saw the Baron fight. That went in favor of SKT to get the Baron. They're now hoping that Samsung will overextend. CuVee doesn't have teleport at the moment. Huni's TP is ready, meaning if Samsung are pushing with 4 members while CuVee is in a side lane, there is a chance for SKT to force a fight and do what we have seen them do so often.
That moment is not right now. Huni just now is tired again, cannot go back to Gnar, and insight lines with CuVee means he can easily land a stun through his ultimate, so matched well enough. If Huni ever runs far away from the lane, that's when you can start to see those openings here. Mind you, Frozen Mallet on both these top laners means a chase down is certainly viable.
SKT also needs Samsung to start pushing with the 4. Like, they can't just TP in randomly if Samsung are sitting far back on the map, so they're kind of hoping that Samsung will overextend in the mid lane. There is a ward in the mid here, just past the minion wave at the bottom of your screen. That is a potential ward for Huni to use if they can start a fight.
Remember, Faker is the member of SK Telecom that bought the early Quicksilver Sash. So even when you see Crown creeping around in the Fog of War, there are still options left for Faker. All summoners available as well for both of these squads, except for the teleport on CuVee. So much of this snowball will be determined by the next play, the big team fight that is set up here.
And we can see what we talked about earlier with SKT through the group stage, that blue line on the bottom. Again, this was that's their goal on average when they went 5-1. Right? They won almost all of those games. They were able to get these comebacks, and as you can kind of tell from the numbers, those aren't that gigantic. Neither really is SKT's deficit here. They have come back from worse, but what matters is the next minute right here. As Baron's coming up, the 4th Drake as well. It's about Samsung's mantra, vision control, make it darkness, play for that play one more time.
What's also important about that gold graph is how SKT in the semifinal against RNG, did not fall really far behind like we have seen in the group stages. They had obviously the game 3 where everything went wrong against Uzi's Vayne, but apart from that, SKT had better early games and were more even when they moved towards the later stages of the game. This first game against Samsung, they straight up lost early game. Lost the first turrets, couldn't kill the Malzahar in the mid lane, and they've been behind all game long because of that.
So this is now the moment that starts to matter again. We had that 6-minute lull when SKT stole the Baron, and a mid lane 2-2 fell, and that was it. It's now about this one. The Summoners being up, the ultimates available, the vision control, CuVee on his red buff. It's Samsung's game to play, and it's up to what tactics they want to use to wedge this game open.
That moment approaching quickly here. Baron now spawning, and this is the triple Mountain Drake. This changes the game so much, depending on the spawns here. Samsung can annihilate this Baron incredibly quickly. So you have to set up the play by getting CuVee splitting on the bottom side to mount that pressure and force SK Telecom into the difficult choice.
And Huni is here already because he's trying to get control of the mid lane, trying to allow SKT to push the wave and actually walk into the Baron area through the river so they can kill some of these control wards. But now, SKT were not there to commit, and now Huni has to go back to the bottom lane, and it's actually CuVee who can either take tower or move to mid himself and get Samsung full control.
And once again, it will be mini Gnar as Huni's form times out. You're going to have a little bit of time for CuVee with the minions. They now see Huni is there. They know he's back in a mini. They know a TP is not a threat from him. And you can see Kennen far away, waiting for maybe a TP location. Though the damage is not high, the crowd control is still the same out of AD Kennen, and he can lock in SKT if they do want a team fight.
Huni getting locked up into the 1v1 here. He does not want with CuVee having double buffs at the moment. And Samsung apply the pressure.
Nice, so fast. Damage up, but not even a chance. They played the vision. They pushed the team away. There was no TV flank to be had. Well played, Samsung Galaxy.
It's such a great setup. You get full control of top lane and mid lane, where you have the minions pushing for you. So the enemy team can't walk into the river. They can only show up behind the Baron. But we saw Samsung right there have the vision control, burn down the Baron with 3 Mountain Drakes, and SKT, they cannot react. And suddenly, we sit with Samsung's Mountain Drake and Baron buff. They're now looking for that inhib.
I want to see really quickly the dregs of the SKT vision, because obviously they had no chance at all of checking it, and you can see just how deep their wards even were. They saw their own red buff, and that was it. Any of those brushes could have had Schrodinger's Malzahar in it, and it would have been a dead to anyone but Faker if they had face checked it.
Still only one QSS on the side of SKT.
Yeah, as Malzahar, very often, especially late game, the better option to just ultimate the front line, get your percentage damage down, and make sure that you're safe as far as the tank-to-tank battle. Try and work your way through.
And Ruler's big, keep in mind, he's at 70% crit Infinity Edge, and he will melt through this front line. His individual gold lead is 5,000 over pretty much any of the tanks of SKT, and that's Peanut, who went Merc Treads, which doesn't defend, and also going for Nightspell, which is not a good self-defensive item either. Mid lane now under fire, another turret fall.
They burn it down so fast, and Samsung right now are not looking for big team fights. They're playing the map. It's only 4 kills to 0, 33 minutes, and SKT not even getting a kill, and only getting 1 tower.
Samsung Galaxy have worked their entire year to get back to this moment. Their rematch with SK Telecom, and they're opening it with a very confident game number 1 here. Moments away from cracking the inhibitors.
They're making a statement in the first game. They're not afraid of SKT drafting a bit more for the early game. They're fine blind picking a Malzahar as well. And they're not giving SKT any chance to engage these fights here. Ruler, with his ulti on Xayah, is so confident in the front line. Bang is trying now.
He's going for the damage on Ambition. The tank, though, still at 1,500 health. Ambition rich enough. He's actually got about as much as Bang does individually gold-wise. And there's just no play to be had. We saw Bang toss the ulti out. Couldn't find anything with it. And back we are now to mid lane siege.
Xayah, Janna is just so incredibly safe because of the ultimates of these 2 champions and the answers that they have for any sort of SK Telecom threat that tries to get back there to deal with that damage source. You talk about the gold leads on him, Freak. It's absolutely insane, the difference he can put out. And SKT almost feel like their only option is go after the split pusher instead.
They slowed down. He doesn't have a lot of ways out of this one. Finds some time. Look for Huni. Can't quite get on the shields. They're in time for Wolf, the redemption as well. The top lane still being attacked. That turret down to half HP. Ruler still feels safe, no longer blocked down by the miasma of Cassiopeia, and now another inhibitor has been made open for Samsung Galaxy.
It's the perfect game for Samsung to get all of these Mountain Drakes, because again, they're playing the map. They're constantly pulling SKT around to multiple lanes. This Kennen here can take down a tower. We've seen Ruler multiple times now just stand in the front, hit the tower a few times, and it dies so fast.
Yeah, Samsung Galaxy love risk-free gameplay. Not overstaying here for the second inhibitor, backing off as soon as that one is complete, and CuVee gets to pick up the Ocean Trade.
Also very important if we look back at how SKT have been winning a lot of games through Faker. It's been when he's been on champions that has some global. Talia, Galio, champions where you can impact multiple lanes at the same time. The Cassiopeia cannot do that. That's focused on you winning your lane in mid, and that is what Samsung were looking for. So Faker is suddenly not, but top and mid at the same time.
It is truly something to highlight in this matchup. Even though SK Telecom have Faker, the greatest player of all time, the brightest star, Samsung Galaxy pride themselves most on their team play and their coordination.
And it doesn't matter if you're the greatest player in the world if you never get to fight anyone. If you never actually get to use your mechanics and your skills, because the team you're playing against are like, yeah, no, we don't need to fight you, we just run around you.
And of course, Ambition has, I think, cleanly out-juggled Peanut so far in this game. CoreJJ and the rest of the squad have had better vision control than SKT as well. And that Samsung Galaxy style, the one they brought to Worlds, perfected throughout these years. They're going to play in the top jungle, not going to find that one as Ambition gets away with quick reflexes and walks away from the barrel. The siege can continue top lane.
Seen twice now Bang trying to fire that ulti here to start a fight in the last few minutes.
Mid flash ult, and it's going to beat the Quicksilver Sash out, but it's just a trade of flash ulti for an active item, and Ruler is completely fine.
Meanwhile, on the bottom side, CuVee takes his toll. He's inside the base, and there they go!
Going for another one. Crown does kite away, but the Let's Bounce brings Ambition back into safety. Another bit of poke out from Bang, and it does not matter. The top inhibitor dies, and simply there is no fight to be had for SKT. The bottom gone as well. SKT's base in shambles. And the fight continues as Bang now forced back away. Ruler safe enough. Kites away from Faker. Good damage here. Gets the knockup. A bit of healing as well. The barrier pop of Faker. Almost gets himself the solo kill. Now forced to run away, but kites forward. Gets away from the knockup. Gets rooted in, and Crown gets himself that kill in the mid lane. 5-0 in the game as they keep pushing forward. Super minions in tow.
Samsung Galaxy only give up one turret this entire game and absolutely dominate SK Telecom.
A complete domination to this one. They look for a couple more kills to pad the stats, but there is no way back in this one for SKT. The slicing maelstrom in there. 7-0 in the game. 2 more to go. Samsung Galaxy strike down SKT in the first.